Welcome to Vladcast, everyone. This is our somewhat regular opportunity to talk to one of our parishioners and learn more about them and hopefully have them give us some ideas about how we can do things better in our parish, because everyone comes with different perspectives and different ideas, and we want to be able to share those with people. And it also helps you to see how other people are living, and you can sort of maybe say, well, maybe I'll steal that little piece of what that person is doing and that'll be good for me. So it's really important that we have this opportunity, and today we're really happy to have Hope Harmon with us. You're the treasurer of the sisterhood, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she's the treasurer of the sisterhood and is in church regularly with 3 little girls, and that's a pretty exciting and interesting background, I think. And maybe you could tell us a little bit more about yourself. Tell folks what it is that you'd want them to know about you.
About me now in life?
Yeah.
I have 3 little girls. I'm home with them. St. Vladimir's is really the center of our lives. So it's our second place outside of our home.
Super. And you're part of the colonization of the eastern part of Jackson County by St. Vladimir people. Several families have moved to that part of Jackson County, not far from St. Vladimir's, even probably closer than downtown Ann Arbor, honestly. And so that's kind of an interesting thing to see too, and I think kind of nice. We've blessed Grass Lake the last couple of theophanies, and it's nice to have folks out in that direction, and you're one of those families that's out there. So the first question we usually ask is, how did you become Orthodox? And we leave it at that, like very general. So why don't you tell the story as you remember it, as you think of it, as it is meaningful to you?
Well, I was raised Christian in a sense, and that's kind of, a search, longing for God started in childhood. Mm-hmm. My parents were part of a movement, a Protestant church movement called the Vineyard, and they were planting churches and super involved, living at the church, putting all of their time into ministry. Mm-hmm. Before my sister and I came along. And when we came along, they actually had to leave this church that they were part of, and they loved so much. They just needed more support with 2 little kids. Sure. They hadn't been career people. They've been Jesus freak people. So we moved away from that church, and then we didn't go to church for most of my childhood.
Oh, interesting.
And I think a big part of that was that my parents were pretty sad about having to leave their church. Mm-hmm. And then I also learned, when I looked back and kind of studied that movement, it really had kind of started to fall apart actually by the time I was even 9 or 10. What my parents had known didn't really exist anymore. So they struggled to find a church community that was anything like what they had before. Got it. But there was a lot of talk of the good old days, and sometimes people from those days would come over, and we would have a prayer meeting, sing worship songs, and we, said prayers before bed, and there was some general idea of, that we're living in a Christian way. Mm-hmm. I was thinking as a little girl, like what my idea of Jesus was. I had a song that I would sing to myself, like when I was scared at night. Mm-hmm. Jesus loves me, Jesus died for me, and he'll always be there. Uh-huh. And that was my theology really until I was like 16 years old, I think. And that was enough for me. But when I got to high school, I realized I really needed more. Mm-hmm. We had actually, my sister and I had been homeschooled, and our joke was we were homeschooled, home churched. Uh-huh. But by the time I was going to a public high school and trying to be my idea of what a Christian would be, mm-hmm. and it was very challenging. And I knew I needed support, so I went to a church in a nearby city, and it was a Pentecostal church. It was very active, lively mm-hmm. church, and I got involved there. And the spirituality there, I didn't always completely jive with, but they had a lot of ministry that I could get involved with, so I did that. Really loved that inner city ministry. They had like a ton of resources, and you could, we could go door to door in rough neighborhoods and tell people like Jesus loves you and do you need a refrigerator, and so it was very fun. But that youth group sadly it kind of fell apart. There was a scandal, and I was starting to feel anyway that I was becoming cognizant of the fact that I knew very little about the Bible and very little about theology, and I wasn't being fed that where I was. So
it's more about the feeling than about the content.
Yeah, I'm an emotional person. I like that emotional stuff. I was drawn to that, but I was realizing that I did not have the foundation that I needed, and I was longing for more. And so I went Mennonite. I went a totally different direction, and just going by myself. I could drive at this point. And I really stuck out like a sore thumb there. But they were very friendly to me, and they did teach me some things. Let me come to Bible study, open their homes to me, and then it was time to go to college. And I convinced my parents I really need to go to a private Christian school, evangelical college, because I still hadn't found my tribe, and I really wanted to. That was a big longing of my heart. It's pretty lonely. And I also, as a young woman, I was very interested in getting married and having kids. So I was concerned about how I was going to find a spouse. And so I went to a private Christian evangelical school, and had a lot of hope to meet my tribe there. And instead, it was like another really big culture shock for me. So I was having trouble. I really wanted to be a Christian, but there wasn't a place for me to fit, to belong. And then in college, I had like a series of just like back-to-back personal tragedies. At the same time, I was taking a comparative world religions class, and I started to have some really big questions, and I started to unravel, and got into a party scene at college, had a more traditional college experience, which was strictly forbidden at this Christian college. So it was like a subculture, underground, secret knock, and kind of a thing. But it was in this kind of underworld that I met Thaddeus. So he was also there at this school, and we were not in the exact same friend group, but kind of peripherally started getting closer and closer to actually meeting each other. And we were in English classes together. We both studied. He was a writing major, and I was a literature major, and so we kind of started to become acquainted with each other, and then started dating, and we got married really young. And then we collectively were not feeling like Christians anymore. We both had felt this kind of disillusioned with what at least we had hoped this college experience was going to be. It didn't turn out to be. And so we started just exploring anything and everything. We would just go to the New Age bookstore or whatever, and get a stack this big, and the esoteric thing that we gravitated towards, we'd read about it and study it, and we were also doing psychedelics, and in a very serious way, as like a way to try to discover what we discovered very quickly and easily is that the spiritual realm is very real, and we also felt that God was very real, but we just didn't know exactly how to apply that and where we fit. We ended up eventually gravitating towards Buddhism specifically, and practicing Theravada Buddhism meditation, and that for us provided a ton of clarity, and it was actually really helpful, I think, initially for us to just kind of clear our minds and focus on having awareness of our thoughts and, just taking some responsibility for that. And also just kind of
like a beginning of an inner life.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And some of the first things I learned about Buddhism also just made so much sense to me. Life is suffering. That's one of the first things you have to accept and for me that was like, oh, finally someone's saying it, Yes, that's been my experience. So it was very refreshing to us.
I'm sure.
So I think of that as a nice time for us in our newly married life, and we were very isolated together in that, and just kind of bonding as a newly married couple. But then I was still, on YouTube a lot, reading a lot of books, and I found a guru online that I really connected with, and he claimed to be part of this lineage of gurus, the Advaita Vedanta tradition. Turns out he wasn't really who he said he was, but the non-dualism is a big thing that he talked about, and that was also just super relaxing to me. I don't know how, it's like if I'm not real, then also my pain isn't real and my conscience isn't real, and just felt like a lot of it felt very true to me. Also, you kind of it was really easy to experience in real time the things he was saying and feel like they were real. So that was a turning point for us. It took Thaddeus a while to get on board with that, but he did eventually. And then this guru and his group of people were living in another country. So
got it.
I had my penny jar to try to go meet him, but I never saved up enough money, thank God, to go. But I was listening to him 4 or 5 hours a day easily. Wow. I had a desk job, and I always had 2 screens, one for my work and one for him. So I, just listening to him all the time, and I felt very spiritual, of course, and I listening to him. But then when I wasn't listening to him, I was a very unhappy person in general, and that kind of was increasingly the case. So I think in retrospect, what I didn't realize was happening was that I was focused on this thing that was really beautiful to me, but I had left the back door open. And so, and I wasn't paying any attention to that. So while I was meditating, or while I was listening to my guru, I was feeling very spiritual and enlightened and peaceful, and but then when I wasn't doing those things, my passions were getting more and more strong, and taking over me also more and more. So more angry and impatient and jealous and all kinds of ugly things. So the transition kind of out of that period of our lives is kind of fuzzy for me, honestly, but Thaddeus had discovered Jordan Peterson online. That I know that was kind of the start of something, because we had been interested in Jungian psychology, and so Jordan Peterson is part of that. And so we had to respect for him in that way. And even though he wasn't saying anything that blew our minds intellectually necessarily, he was saying something to us that no one else was saying, which was you need to clean your room, and you need to get your life in order, and you need to be part of a real community. Right. You need to actually exist in your own life. You can't. And so it was kind of dawning on us that we our spiritual life was online, and we didn't have anyone to share that with. Right. And also anytime we were kind of trying to apply this thing that we had created between the two of us to real life, it wasn't really working out. It wasn't translating very well. And so we did try to start to get our life in order. And we were also after that kind of had some contact with Orthodox Christianity online through other people Thaddeus was listening to, connected to Jordan Peterson, Jonathan Peugeot, and Thaddeus he was a waiter at a restaurant, and he had a customer that was Orthodox.
Oh.
And I had bought him an Orthodox cross because he had been interested in that. And this man saw that and was like, "You're Orthodox?" And thought that was interesting. And he brought Thaddeus some books.
Nice.
So we started kind of like learning a little bit, but it was really connected to this idea of like being a better, like improving Western civilization through this like Jordan Peterson lens, more than like we're going to go to church actually and be Christians and leave this pagan stuff behind. But it was like the little bit of crack of light was like coming in. We were living in this apartment that actually shared a wall with a Santeria bookstore.
Oh.
So black magic was going on like on the other side of our bed shared a wall with this place, and so they're having workshops and practicing these things right next to us. And the more that like we kind of started to think about Christ and Orthodoxy, we're feeling some very active pushback.
I bet.
And so that was interesting. It was like a data point for me. I was having really crazy dreams, and we started having like strange medical things happening to us.
Interesting.
And we started going to the Catholic bookstore that was near our house and like getting little prayer cards. And I had a like floor to ceiling shrine for my guru in our apartment, and I was putting little Jesus here and little Virgin Mary here, and it was just kind of the beginning. I have one memory of like another like big data point for me of like turning things around was Thaddeus had learned about the Jesus prayer, and he had told me I could say the Jesus prayer on my meditation beads, and I had been having a hard day, and so I kneeled down at my shrine and started to say the Jesus prayer, and it felt kind of weird at first, and then like I just like weeping uncontrollably. It was almost like really kind of like an out of body experience because I couldn't understand why I would be crying. Like what do I? At that point, it was like there was nothing that I needed mercy for. I was like thinking I was God, really. So why was this affecting me so much? And so it was like, okay, that was weird, and then I kind of put it away, but it was something that I kind of came back to and had similar experiences like that started kind of adding up. But at the time, we knew we needed to get out of this apartment, and we knew that we needed more community. So we moved to Michigan, where Thaddeus's parents were, and we were like, we're gonna do the things that adults do. We realized we had been living a really childish, kind of selfish life. So we're gonna buy a house, and we're gonna have kids, and we're gonna take care of our parents, and we're gonna, be involved in our community. And so we had a lot of high hopes for that. And when we moved, it actually like coincided almost exactly. It was like the day that we moved. Thaddeus came across this, I think it was a letter or a blog or something online, revealing these things about my guru that were really bad. So I really think this was miraculous in a way, but because I loved him so much, and I had dedicated so much of my life and time and I had been sending him money for years. When I read it, I knew it was true. Like
it fit. It's
I knew
true.
Absolutely, it was true, and so that was really heartbreaking for me. And we took all of our spiritual trinkets and all the things that had made up this big shrine in an attic and closed the door. And then we were like spiritually homeless. Really, I mean, it was like we weren't exactly ready to go to church, but what we had been doing was gone. We realized was gone. And so we were kind of just in this like waiting. It felt like we were in a waiting room, like just kind of weren't really sure what the next thing was going to be. And unfortunately, I took this opportunity to get for whatever. I'm not really sure what set me in this way, but it was kind of like the big last temptation maybe before coming to the church, but I decided to get into witchcraft a little bit. I was just kind of messing around, and I knew I was like poking a bear, and I kind of was excited that I was getting a response. It just like horrifies me now to think about that, but I think I wanted some control, and I wanted to feel like I had some power over my life, and I was really heartbroken about this guru, and he frowned upon witchcraft. So it was also like some kind of, I was rebelling against my father in some way, I think, doing that. But then I was feeling this pushback. Not really, I didn't really see it that way. I was feeling like I was getting a response, and I was having some kind of intense, dark experiences. I wasn't super concerned about them for whatever reason. And then I remember I went to a psychic fair. I talked to a psychic there who I really barely said anything, and she was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You are so vulnerable. Like you have no protection, and you're dinking around in this stuff, and you need a God." That's what she said to me. Like you need a God. I don't care who it is, but you need one. Like you're gonna get destroyed. And so I knew she was right too. It was like I knew I had this feeling like I was being eaten alive, like in a slow way, and I was had been okay with that. But when she brought it in the forefront of my mind like that, it was like, yeah, I actually want to live, I think, and I want to. She's right. I'm very vulnerable, and I'm messing with things I shouldn't be messing with. And I think like Thaddeus in some way was just kind of waiting for me to come around to like, you ready to go to church yet? And when I kind of started bringing up more conversations about Christianity again, he was happy to come out with his stack of Seraph and Rose books for me to read. And I started trying. It was really hard at first. I'd read like a paragraph and throw the book across the room, and then go and get it again and pick it up and read another paragraph. I had like a very feminist worldview, and like there's just a lot of barriers for me initially, and I just didn't want anyone telling me what my spirituality was going to look like, because I liked designing it myself.
Sure.
And like when you're in this like pagan world, like everything is like compatible with everything else, pretty much. Like you can
pick and
do
choose
your yoga and have your crystals, and
right.
Maybe you'll pick up some kind of ancient thing from another part of the world, and it all kind of jives together, but nothing is like that with Christ. Like he's just set apart. So that was hard for me. I have to choose him, and then I have to give up everything, and I have to give up my own will, but then 2020 happened, and like that really kind of accelerated things for us, because it was like, okay, well, what if we're gonna die of this virus, and like let's just try. We need to go to church. Nothing else is working. We're just kind of like sitting around, and so we started trying to go to church, but they were all closed. Go to Orthodox church specifically.
You guys were still in Midland then?
Yeah. And we had gone a couple times to a Greek church in Saginaw. But then when the real like lockdown happened, they weren't really having services. We wanted to try. We tried a couple other parishes that were closer to us than St. Vladimir's, but they would tell us things like, you can be put on a schedule. You can come to. They were doing like some people will come to a church, and then the other group A comes to church, and Group B comes to church, or whatever. And we can meet with you, but like we can't exactly like let you in right now, which was fine. No judgment for them, but we were like, we really need we need help like right now. And so we looked. We widened our radius of searching for a church, and we found St. Vladimir's, and on the website was like this huge banner that said, "You're welcome here," and we were like, okay, if that's where we're going. So it was a 2-hour drive for us, but we're gonna give it a try. And we were doing services outside, and it was so beautiful. We were completely taken aback. the sincerity and the sobriety and the beauty of it. We just sat in our car and cried afterwards. Like, okay, that's what we want. But like, there was still hard because we were so confused and deluded about so many things. But like, that was the first step. So we just started driving here 2 hours every weekend, and we didn't talk to anybody because we were scared to. It's probably like I think it may have even been a couple months that we came and did not talk to anyone. Like when communion happened, we really ditched out real quick.
Got it.
And I think one Sunday, Father Moses finally caught us and was like, "Who are you?" And like, "Are you Orthodox or not?" I'm like, "What?" And I think Thaddeus' response to him was, "How do we join? We want to join, but like," and he was like, "Okay, let's talk first. Who are you?" And like, and we sat right here in the back of the church and talked to Father Moses, and that there was so many temptations for me initially, but we just kept coming, and we kept sitting down with you. We'd meet with you regularly and bring up all the questions that would come up for us, and God was so merciful to us. He kept encouraging us to come back and forgiving us, and also showing us like the wool was kind of pulled off our eyes, and like we were having a lot of demonic attack, and just seeing for the first time like our actual spiritual state, and like that we had invited a lot of dark beings into our home, and so it was very scary, but it was also like, thank God, because it was like there's no way back. Like we can't go back. We only have to go forward. So it's just one foot in front of the other. So yeah, that's how I got here. Nothing else worked. Tried almost everything else.
I think that's actually incredibly instructive. There's a lot of people. I hope that we'll see this video, but there's a lot of people kind of orbiting the church and trying to figure out, what do I do? How do I get there? But these things are holding me back. Like, I know that a lot of young women really struggle with the occult. As you said, like you get feedback.
Yeah.
You press the button and the bell rings. So that's really tempting. It's kind of like Pentecostalism. Like there's feedback. The question is, where is this coming from?
Right.
And I think that it's really helpful and instructive, especially for young women, to be able to see that another young woman saw that and was like, okay, that's actually something, but that's not what I want. And I think that people have to have some grace for themselves too, because very rarely are you like, okay, I'm gonna do these crystals today and tomorrow I'm gonna be an Orthodox Christian. Like it doesn't usually work like that. You've gotta get on the path, and the path may be all over the place. And as you said, a lot of the things on that side of the spiritual life you can kind of make them align, because thematically it's kind of all serving the same purpose, right? So it takes a while to unpack that stuff. So I think it's so much better to hear it from you than to hear it from me, because I can say that, like, I read this article and this is what's happening and this is the sociological process, but it doesn't matter, because when you're in that, you don't want to hear that. You want to just say, like, she did it, maybe I can do it too. And I hope that people will be able to take that from that, because a lot of men find it easy to kind of, even though there are many more men who are orbiting who aren't here, but it just seems like the whole process since the pandemic, it's been easier for men to kind of step through the doors than for women. And that's starting to change, and I'm really happy to see that. Like yesterday, we had several young ladies who were here that had been here for the first time, so that was awesome. But thanks for sharing that, because I think it's really important, even if it's kind of hard to talk about some of those things sometimes. It's really, really, really useful. So you guys have been here for something like 5 years, probably. So you've got enough data and have been here enough to kind of, I hope, answer the next question, which is, what do you see at St. Vladimir's? We'll start with, what do you see here that is good and we should do more of it? And the next question will be, what do you see here that is not good and we should do less of it. But let's try the good one is usually easier to talk about. But if you want to start the other way, you can start that way too.
I mean, the abundance of services that we have, it's really great.
Mm-hmm.
The community here. It's like if I'm having the worst day of my life, like I want to come here.
Well,
so that
nice.
says a lot about, you know, I want just the community and the support. Yeah, so I don't know how to do more of it. But it's really great how it is.
Well, thank God. In a way, I don't like even asking that question because it seems like praise us. But this is also for many people who aren't here.
Yeah.
Right. So I want them to be able to say like, okay, this is a thing that for me as a convert, this is something that's good. I often wonder how young moms feel about the sort of culture, the family motif that we have here, and like, is it comfortable for the fact that many women are willing to take your baby and you can just hand off the baby, or is that like, actually I'd rather just hold on to the baby? Like, how do you feel about that? Because I mean, I have my ideas about that and what's good and what's not, but I don't have the same perspective as you. So I don't know.
It probably definitely depends on the person.
Yeah.
And the child too. Like, I think with my first baby, I maybe felt more like that. Like, she's fine, and
Right.
like, I'm worried if she's like even like over here. Like, but now that I'm on my third, it's for sure. It's like, you know, she's with so and so and she's fine. I don't even think about, and I appreciate that people want to take her away, or my older girls really enjoy. They don't want to be with me at church. They have so many friends.
Well, they get to be with you at other times.
To go see.
Yeah.
You know, most of those friends are grown up women. They want to go.
Right.
They want to go and talk to, and so I think that's great. I think that just kind of depends on the mom and what she has going on. But I mean, I think that's really positive. I like that. I think it's something really, really valuable for my children, that they have so many great role models, and that I don't have to worry about them going off with someone else, or, you know,
Right.
That there's that security here, and the community that it's so good for them. It's like, wow, I wish I would have had that. I'm sure so many people feel that way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what's really interesting is that, you know, of course, the church is interested in church writ large, not just St. Vladimir's. What works? How do we keep people coming to church? How do we help them to persist, like to pursue that virtue of persistence, and especially that transition between a child when they're here because it's their parents' faith, it's theirs too, but you know what I mean, and as you transition into a young adult and an adult when you have to make the faith yours if you're going to persist. And one of the things that is consistent in all studies is that to have another Orthodox Christian adult who's not your parent that you have a relationship with is crucial to that transition. And I always found that really interesting. So I'm really glad that happens here. Occasionally we talk about it, but I think that's probably and hopefully something that's normal in a sort of church family, which is all working towards the same thing ideally. So anyway, I'm glad to hear that that's something positive for you, because it is really interesting that just shows up consistently, whatever it is, how much you're involved. I mean, that's not unimportant, but the sort of differentiating factor seems to be relationships with other adults who are Orthodox Christians, not your parents.
Yeah.
So that's really good to hear. And I see your girls, I mean, my back is to everyone, but occasionally I'll see, you know, they're in the choir or something like that. And I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome. I guess, you know, that's one of those things. There'll be many kind of growing pains as we transition from our smaller space to our bigger space, that we'll have to probably have to facilitate a little bit more affirmatively rather than, well, this just happens. But I think that's an important one, and I hope that'll continue. So, okay, so the other side of the question, which I think is a really important one, because for various reasons, what are things that happen here that you think we should do less of, or things that you find difficult? And I don't think that that's I think that's a healthy question. I think every parish should ask itself that, because you want to try to facilitate the things that are positive and try to mollify or negate as much as possible the things that are negative. So it helps everyone when we have that conversation. So anyway, without further ado, do you have any thoughts about things that you really struggle with?
I mean, I thought about this question a lot.
Could be everything from parking to old ladies who pull your kids' hair, which I don't think that happens.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
No, I thought about it a lot. It's challenging to be a mom with little kids here sometimes, but I think that's just the nature of this time of life. I don't know what could change. Anything I thought about, it's like, I don't know what could make that any different, really.
Got it.
Sometimes I struggle to feel like I'm keeping up with all the things we have going on here. So it made my husband laugh when I said, maybe less activity. Which probably is not the thing that most people would say, but
I hear you.
There was less, and I felt like, how am I going to be able to do that or do this?
Right. Tell me what your thoughts are about that we sort of have this nascent moms gathering that happens once in a while. Have you been able to participate in that? Okay, so that's probably a good example of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. And I like the flyer. I see the flyer, and I try to think about how I can do that, and I just kind of have to pick and choose right now what I put my energy towards. Mm-hmm. But then sometimes there is this feeling of kind of being more on a peripheral, periphery of what is happening here than I would like. I would like to feel more, but I think it's just kind of what has to be right now, and I think that's right. That can change. So.
Sure, and I think that changes over the course of a person's lifetime and engagement with the parish. So I think that a lot of parents will express a frustration could we do that at a different time, or could we do this? And I think when you're in that season of raising kids, they shouldn't make the schedule, but in many ways they do. Mm-hmm. We can't let them totally run the asylum, but yes, sometimes we just have to do that. So I think though that's a good point, and I hope that everyone will kind of understand. There's not an expectation that any one person can do everything, and I think sometimes folks see okay, first week of Great Lent, there's services every morning and every evening. Well, it will be great if we get to that point where the church is just as full at those services as it is on Sunday morning, but that's probably not realistic for a while. But if we sort of have a lot of opportunities for people to connect, hopefully they connect, at least a couple, somewhere, rather than it's a 1 or a 0, either you're here or you're not. And so that's kind of been our approach. And so I hope people understand that. I want to take an opportunity to say that just once again. It's not expected that every person is at every service, but if we do a lot of services, we hope that everybody can do some. So we hope that's helpful for folks. Okay. Maybe you can share a few thoughts about things that you feel are important for those who are inquiring, catechumens, New Orthodox Christians, based on the experience that you had. Because I'm sure there's some things you're like, well, I wish I knew that, or well, I should have done that earlier, or whatever. If you have ideas about things that, from your perspective, you would want to pass on to folks just to make their lives a little bit easier. I always tell people, it's always better to learn from somebody else's mistakes than from your own, although we usually just learn from our own. But if you have thoughts about that, that I think would be really useful and interesting for people.
Well, I would recommend meeting with either Father Gregory or another priest here regularly, even if you're just an inquirer, if you can, and make a list of questions. I think just even that regular contact with the church is really helpful, with an appointment. You're going to be there, because there's a lot of temptations and a lot of excuses you can make to not have that regular engagement early on. So I think that's important for just accountability, and it kind of sets up your practice for confession later, and
for sure.
Making that a regular appointment in your life. I would recommend like try to get to people's homes like for dinner, or like you know, that is so helpful, just spending time with other Orthodox Christians in their homes, in their everyday lives, because you will pick up on things without even realizing you're picking up on things. And so that was helpful to us. We could have done more of that. Socially, we lived far away for a while, and we moved here to the Ann Arbor area for St. Vladimir's, so that we could do more of that kind of a thing. But I definitely recommend, like, you can't do it on your own. You just really can't. So you have to try to make friends. That will be easy to do because we'll be so glad you're here. But make yourself available to spend time with people, outside of church as well as
I think that's super important, because it very quickly you kind of pick up what's going on in church stuff. Like, okay, everybody's making the sign of the cross, probably I should be doing that. Everybody's kneeling, probably I should be doing that. Like these things come relatively quickly, but that's only a small part of your life is Sunday morning, right? So to see how other people live and to be exposed to that, I think is really, really helpful. Did you find that the meal afterwards on Sunday helped to facilitate those other kind of interactions? Okay, that again, like, it's hard for me to put myself into someone's shoes who's coming through the door. I remember when I walked through the door, whenever that was, 1988, through those, well, we replaced the doors physically, but through that same opening. And I do remember that the meals were really important for me. Now, I was a college student and, hated dorm food and stuff like that. And back in those days, you had like one choice. So for the students who are watching this, you probably can't believe it, but we did have electricity. But the coming here and having like a homemade meal and being able to interact with other Orthodox Christians, that was like the battery recharge that got me through the rest of that next week. And I especially have very, very fond memories of the Wednesday night pre-sanctifieds. That was happening when Father Paul was here, and that made a big impression on me, a very big impression. So, good. So thank you for that. That's helpful. And I think the last sort of standing question before I ask you what I should have asked you is, we're working to try to help everyone in the parish to tithe their time, talent, and treasure, with the understanding that, like, at different seasons of life, you're going to have more of each of those. So young people won't have a lot of treasure, but they do sometimes have time, and they always have talent. Anyway, I wanted to get your perspective on that and your feedback about that, because I think some folks are kind of like, yeah, that's great, let's do it. And other people are like, I don't understand, what am I doing? And so anyway, I'd just like to get your perspective on that.
Well, I'm thinking about that and tithing, there's a story that came to mind. There's two men who are very good friends, and they're like brothers, but not very close. And one of the men has to go away on a business trip, I believe it is, for a period of time, like maybe even a couple of years. It's a long trip. So before he leaves, his friend says to him, I want you to know that if anything ever happened to me, I have this money put away for my wife and my son. If something happens to me, I want them to know it's there, right? I don't want to tell her now, she might spend it or something.
Right.
But it's buried under the house.
Okay.
And so his friend goes on this business trip. He's gone for a long time. He comes back to their town, and he sees his friend's wife and son begging on the street, in rags. They're very emaciated, and he barely recognizes them, and they're begging for food and for money. And when they see him, they're like, oh, thank goodness, your friend, my husband, he died, a long time ago, and we have nothing. Like, we're so poor, and destitute, and we need your help. And he says to her, this is not true. You actually have money, and I can show you where it is. And so she doesn't believe him at all, and he brings her back to her own house, and there's a secret, trapdoor
Uh-huh.
maybe in the floor, and he shows her that her husband has had this treasure there for her all along. So they've been begging on the street, but there's all this money for them, enough to take care of them for the rest of their lives. And when I was thinking about that story, just like for anyone who, like, maybe you've been Orthodox your whole life and you don't understand why all these people are coming to your church even, or maybe you're like me and you're new and you still have this very much this mentality that you're a guest, and you're still trying to kind of get plugged in and find out where your place is. But because we have the Orthodox Church and the one true church, there's a treasure buried under the house. And we have an abundance. We're actually very, very wealthy. And so it's a suggestion, I guess, in a mentality from being a beggar on the street to knowing that, like, we have access to all the money in the world. Literally, because it's all God's, but also, in a figurative way. We have a lot of wealth, and we have to share it also, because there was a place for me to come here from the wreckage outside, the outside world, and we have to make a place for more people like me. I would like that. Or, they could come here and they could find rest.
I think that's really good, and to hear it from your perspective is really powerful. Just yesterday, so I don't know when this will be released, but yesterday was the meat fair. So we had our annual meeting in Blenny and so on and so forth. But I think that the massive collection of people that were here didn't come either for Blenny or for annual meeting. Ever since August, the church is just full. And we're just at that point where if we don't do something, well, maybe there'll be a lot of places because people will start to leave. And that's our great concern. So we should tithe because we're called to do so. St. John Chrysostom says tithe is for Old Testament. We Christians should do more, but doing the 10% math is easier for people than, like 10.5. So we're encouraging people, and if we can do that, we can build a new church, but then we can also move Father Colin to full-time, and then we can have a place for even more people to engage, and we can do even more. And Christianity is a missionary religion. It never stops. There's no end. So more people come, more people tithe. That means space for more people to come, and it just goes and goes and goes. So, and then the last thing is, what did I not ask you that I should have asked you? What do you feel like needs to be said, but that I didn't invite you to say?
I think I've talked enough. Probably.
Okay.
I could not think of anything else.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to do this. It's really important for our parishioners to be able to know better more of our parishioners, and we're really happy to have you and Thaddeus and the girls here. I don't think you should feel like a guest. I think you're part of the family.